We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman issue 34. This is from the 2016 series. It's written by Dan Abnett with art by Kelly Jones. Michelle Madsen did colors. Steve Wan's letterer. Andy Kubert and Alex Sinclair did the cover I have. Assistant editor was Andrea Shea. Alex Antone editor. Brian Cunningham group editor. Now this issue is mainly about Corum Rath's kind of reflection on what's going on. We learn a lot about his background in his history, how he's from the Ninth Ward, and he sees all the sea-changed people, or what they're calling taint bloods. And they're people that are more fish-like, and they're humanoid, lizard people type looking things, squid faces, all that. And we learn that his obsession with magic is getting worse and worse. They've alluded to that in previous issues, but they're talking a lot more about it now. He's becoming almost addicted to it, and he's starting to see villains everywhere, people that want to betray him, which is normal with kingship and rulers. That's why Shakespeare said, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown." He knows that the schools of magic are holding very dark secrets from him, and he's very upset about that. Things really lead to a really dark place in this one, but we do learn quite a bit about Corum Rath and his desire for power and where it comes from, and his abusive dad. And like Murrah said a few issues ago, people that want to be king probably shouldn't be. Paraphrasing there, but that's the general idea. That's very evident in this story. It was kind of a standalone, off-topic kind of story, but it really does lead into what's coming, and it's very interesting because the consequences of his greed are becoming more and more evident as the issue goes. And it's a very solid issue. It's a good standalone issue to kind of bridge the gap between story arcs, I think. Now, I'm looking forward to reading the next issue, and I really did like Kelly Jones's art quite a bit. I'm a big fan of his from back when he did Detective Comics in the 90s. He was working with Doug Moench. Man, those books were great. But it's very kind of an abstract sort of art style that a lot of people don't like, and it took me a long time to adjust to it too, but I've really grown to appreciate it, even though it's exaggerated, and I generally don't like these kind of exaggerated non-anatomical looks, but it's kind of an impressionist version of a comic book, but it works really well. The colors really work with it as well and brings it together to make a very interesting art piece. So I would definitely recommend this issue. It was a lot of fun. It was a really good story, gives you a lot of good background on Corum Rath and some motivation and depth to the character so that he's not just this like, I'm a bad guy sort of character. So if you get a chance to dig through a back issue box and you see this for a couple bucks, definitely pick it up. I didn't feel cheated. I thought the art was good, the story was good. It's an all-around solid comic, and you don't find a lot of those these days. Definitely pick it up. It's only about a year old. You should be able to find it in a back issue bin somewhere for a couple bucks. If you have to pay cover price, I didn't feel cheated for the cover price. I would have paid the full $4 and really not felt too bad about it. That being said, that's just my take. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman issue 35. This is from the Rebirth series, of course, written by Dan Abnett, pencils by Robson Rocha, Daniel Henricks, and Danny Miki on inks, Sonny Gao on colors, Travis Lanham on letters, Howard Porter and Hi-Fi did the cover. Variant cover by Joshua Middleston. Now, this issue, the tide metaphorically and pun-wise has turned on the rebels. King Shark and his men are being attacked by Cadaver, who is of course mutated now and has sent in mutated legions. Corum Rath is starting to understand the consequences of his choices to unleash the abyssal powers, and he is paying the price for them. Meanwhile, Aquaman is putting up quite a fight against Merc, who betrayed him, and the court members are starting to realize that they made a mistake in booting out Arthur. So, overall, fantastic issue. It really moves the story along and helps establish what's going on. A lot of action. King Shark looked really cool. The art is pretty solid overall. There's a few little quibbles I have. People don't do background detailing quite as much as they should, but overall, very, very good issue. I thought Cadaver looked really scary and Aquaman looked awesome. I really do like this artist quite a bit, really growing on me. I think the action scenes need a little bit of work, but other than that, very good. I'd be willing to bet there's some 3D modeling going on, but overall, very cool. Parts of the fight with Merc were really well done, but other parts need a little bit of tweaking, I think, on anatomy, but still solid art, solid story. The ending was pretty intense. It had a nice twist to it, and I'm excited to read the next issue. As an independent story, not that great. You will find something here. There's a lot of action that you'll be able to enjoy, but as far as being part of a series, fantastic. Great installment. So that being said, if you're grabbing this one off the stand by itself, you're not going to get as much out of it as you would if you were reading the last several issues, but it's worth checking out. And if you are looking to get into Aquaman, not a great jumping on point, but not the worst one either. So a good issue. I would definitely recommend it. I would recommend several issues so far, which I like that, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman, issue 36. This issue continues with the Civil War in Atlantis. Aquaman and Merc have teamed up to assault the Capitol Palace and hopefully stop Corum Rath. This is written by Dan Abnett, art by Riccardo Federici, Sonny Gao colorist, Stephen Wan's letterer, Steven Sedgwick cover, Josh Middleton variant cover. I have the regular cover. Andrea Shia, assistant editor, Alex Antone editor, Brian Cunningham group editor. Now, of course, things don't go quite as planned, and back at the Tower of Widowhood, Vulko and Setia, whatever her name is, are arguing about how to best approach things. They don't have a good answer because the Abyssal Dark has corrupted Wrath. They don't really have any good explanations for how to stop him because it is such an ancient evil. Although they have a few ideas, thanks to Dolphin and Odin, they are really at a major loss, and the Widowhood doesn't seem to understand that they are under direct threat of Corum Rath. They seem to think they are somehow exempt from his insanity. Meanwhile, Arthur is fighting his way through the palace, and wow, when he actually has to face Corum Rath, it is something else. Now, sadly, the cover does give away what is supposed to be a major reveal in the issue, so if you've already seen the cover, unfortunately, you've already kind of seen one of the big reveals, so they kind of ruin it there, but otherwise, it's a solid issue. It's a good middle story. If you're jumping in at this point, you are going to probably be very lost, although it does its best to fill you in. Now, I would have to say that it is a very well put together issue. The art is really beautiful, I think. I think everybody did a real good job on this issue, and the story arc is coming together quite well. So I would definitely recommend the issue. Hopefully, if you do get a chance to pick this up, you can pick up the rest of the storyline because it is a lot of fun. It's a very well written epic, and this issue is very well drawn, so definitely worth checking out. But that, as always, is just my opinion. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman, issue 37. This is part of the Rebirth series. This is written by Dan Abnett, art by Riccardo Federici, colors by Sonny Gao, letters by Steve Wands, cover by Steven Sedgwick, variant cover by Joshua Middleton, assistant editor Andrea Shea, editor Alex Antone, group editor Brian Cunningham. I have the regular cover, which I think is pretty effective. The secret police, called the Drift, led by Cadaver, who's mutated, are into the crypts looking for our rebel heroes. Meanwhile, Aquaman is trying to do his best to fight off Corum Rath, but he's not doing particularly well. So unfortunately, other options are at play. They're not good. Corum Rath is very frustrated by this turn of events, and the Abyssal Dark has its own plans that it's convincing him of. Realizing that Aquaman's trident is not quite enough, they try a different route, but before they can get too involved, the Widowhood is attacked, and things happen. Now, this issue was really, really good. You can tell the story arc is almost over. Its next issue is the last issue. And wow, a lot happens. It's a very action-packed issue. The art is fantastic. I really like this artist. There's also a preview of an issue of Titans, issue 23. And I didn't really care about that at all. I would rather they just left it out because the art is total garbage. And it is just, oh, that's hideous art when you, especially after you've been reading the good art of Riccardo Federici. So I would say definitely if you get a chance to read the story arc, definitely do so. It is really good. It's a solid story. This is a solid chapter in the story. If you pick it up on its own, there's a lot of action, but there's too much nuance to what's going on to fully appreciate the quality of the story. But there's probably enough there that it'll bring you up to speed a little bit. You'll get a very general idea of what's going on, but you're going to lose a lot of nuance. So if you're interested in this, try and pick up all the issues of the run or get it in trade. I think it's definitely going to be worth picking up, and it's probably not going to be very expensive to find. You should be able to find these in a back issue bin pretty cheaply. I don't think it's going to be the classic it should be. To me, it's definitely one of the better Aquaman stories I've ever read, especially because it's gone for so long, and I haven't been bored or lost interest once. So I'm really excited to read the final chapter, and hopefully I'll get that video up soon. But in the meantime, this is definitely worth picking up and reading. I'm a huge fan of Dan Abnett, and this is definitely one of his best works, especially for Aquaman, in my opinion. But that's just my take. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman issue 38, part of the Rebirth series, written by Dan Abnett, art by Riccardo Federici, colorist was Sonny Gao, letterer Steve Wands, cover by Steven Sejic, variant cover by Joshua Middleton. I have the variant cover, assistant editor Andrea Shea, editor Alex Antone, group editor Brian Cunningham. I really like the cover. It gives you some real implied visceral rage from Arthur. Things are not going well for the rebels. This issue, if you're going to really appreciate some of what's happening in here, you need to read the Mera, Queen of Atlantis storyline. Mera plays a big part in this issue, and why she plays a big part is explained in that miniseries. It's a really good miniseries too, but it really does tie in here, so I would definitely recommend checking that out. Corum Rath is incredibly powerful. He is beating the crap out of everyone, and he is assaulting the Widowhood. Now, if that tower falls, all of Atlantis will be destroyed. It's one of the foundational structures of Atlantis. Apparently, it's got something to do with magic. It's a little wonky. Just go with it. It's explained better than I'm going to explain it just because you really need to read it. In the end, this is the final chapter of the story arc, and we learn how these events tie into the end of No Justice, which was a really terrible miniseries and very ham-fistedly forced part of the story on here. But Dan Abnett makes it work, and it does create an interesting idea here. It could be really good. I'm interested in reading the next issue. I'm a huge fan of Dan Abnett anyway, but this is a really, really solid run. This story arc was fantastic. So I'm real glad to see that it pays off in the way it does, because it does have a very satisfying ending, unlike so many other books. It really has a solid conclusion, and this is definitely a story arc worth picking up. I prefer single issues, but if you're going to pick it up in trade, definitely do so. If you're considering this series at all, this is a great story arc to get in on. So I think it's going to be collected over the course of 3 or 4 trades total. From what I've seen, this story arc is definitely worth checking out. So I didn't have any issue with the story arc itself. This issue is not going to make much sense on its own. Since it is the final part, it will kind of ruin the arc for you, but it is definitely worth reading. These are probably in the dollar bin. It's unlikely you're going to pay cover price price for them. I don't think they're going to be worth a whole lot, which is unfortunate because it is an excellent story with great art. All around a solid book. Highly recommend it, but that is just my opinion. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman, issue 39. This is from the Rebirth series of 2016. This is Sink Atlantis Part 2. Story by Dan Abnett and Rob Williams. The script was written by Dan Abnett, pencils by Joe Bennett and Vicente Cifuentes, colors by Adriano Lucas, letters by Steve Wands, cover by Rafa Sandoval and Ivan Placenercia, variant cover by Joshua Middleton, assistant editor was Andrea Shea, editor by Alex Antone and Kate Kubert, group editor Brian Cunningham. I have the regular cover and it's a dynamic positioning, but I don't like the art. Everyone's face looks weird and really roundish, but the concept for it's pretty cool. Alright, so the interior art is pretty good, but it's a massive step down from what we saw over the previous storylines where like the crown came down. Frederici's art really kind of spoils you. This art is at best mediocre, and at worst it's occasionally awful. The opening scene of Atlantis looks really cool, but then you get into some of the images where they're actually doing stuff and people's faces look really weird and really poorly detailed. But the story is actually really good. So Aquaman is taking a team down to see what's going on. They found some movement down in the depths, and it turns out the Suicide Squad is down there. Yeah, so Aquaman's down there with Dolphin, Undine, and Jurak Biss, and they're trying to stop the Suicide Squad, and things just are not going well for anyone. The Suicide Squad didn't realize what they were sent there for, so when Aquaman shows up, some of them don't put up too big of a fight, but it's all around a good issue. The Suicide Squad gets split up. Mura confronts Arthur on the fact that he's being kind of an idiot about the whole thing, and she's acting very queen-like. So I really like the characterization of Mura in this, and Aquaman's handled well. Dan Abnett's a fantastic writer, and this is slightly weaker storyline than the previous one, but it's still good. So I'm going to recommend this, even though I don't particularly like the art. I think the art is incredibly weak in parts and good in others, but it's never mind-blowing, fantastic, or even what I would consider high-end quality first-tier work. This is more like high-end Dynamite work. If you were a third-string company like Dynamite, it would be good for them, but not something that I would expect to see in a DC book. So I expected a slightly better art quality. It's not bad, it just doesn't look like it's refined enough for one of the big two. Nonetheless, that is the weakest aspect. I think the story is very, very good, and it continues the plotline very well. It's only a 4-part story. Next part is in Suicide Squad 46, and we'll look at that next. In the meantime, this is a recommend. It's overall a pretty solid issue, even though I have some hesitations about the art. Most likely this will be in the back issue bin, and I'm pretty sure it's in trade paperback by the time I publish this. I would say it's worth checking out. The cover is probably the most dynamic aspect, but that needed some work too. Overall though, it's a solid read. So if you get a chance to pick it up, please do so and give Dan Abnett's run a look, because it's definitely good on Aquaman. But that's just my opinion. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to support the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Aquaman, issue 40. This is from the 2016 series, which was part of the Rebirth relaunch. This one is the final part of Sink Atlantis, written by Dan Abnett, based on the story by Dan Abnett and Rob Williams, pencils by Joe Bennett and Vicente Cifuentes, colors by Adriano Lucas, letters by Steve Wands, cover by Rafa Sandoval and Ivan Placencia, variant cover by Joshua Middleton, Anderson, assistant editor Andrea Shea, editors Alex Antone and Katie Kubert, group editor Brian Cunningham. Now, the cover, again, great concept. I don't like it, though. Everybody looks weird. Mura's hips look really weird. Looks like she's, like, trying to keep from peeing. I don't know. And that scene does not appear in this issue. It's just a clever ruse. The interior art is better, but there are a few problems with it. It's passable, though. I was largely okay with it. Now, this is the finale. Lord Satanus is in the vaults with the device and several other people. I don't want to spoil too much, but Dolphin's on her own for a fair bit. And in order to stop disaster from befalling Atlantis, a member of the Suicide Squad makes the ultimate sacrifice, and some information is leaked to Mura so that she can expose Admiral Meddinghouse and his treachery. Unfortunately, Amanda Waller is not taken out of the equation. I really hate that character. I think she's very obnoxious. But overall, a fantastic storyline, great issue. Each issue does a pretty good job bringing you up to speed on what happened before, which is nice. And Dan Abnett's writing really shines through over the largely decent art, but occasionally mediocre. It's kind of random, which is a little frustrating because we just got done with the previous storyline with some really good artists, and then it gets whatever this is. But it's not that bad in this issue. It was a lot worse last issue, in my opinion. Lord Satanus looks really cool, though. Aquaman, not so much. A lot of times when he's doing stuff, it looks like somebody just posed an action figure and drew that. But some of the scenes were pretty good overall, so I'm not unhappy with it. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of mediocre. But would I recommend this issue? Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Again, there is some flaws in the art, but I can overlook them because largely it was a pretty well done issue. I don't have many complaints about that. So the story itself was fantastic. Abnett really knocked it out of the park with a fun superhero action adventure story. A little bit less serious than the previous storyline, but the stakes are still just as high. Aquaman's putting himself on the line for Atlantis. Even though he's probably not going to get any recognition, he risks himself and the others to stop the Suicide Squad from destroying Atlantis. Not entirely clear on why this was called Sink Atlantis, except that the mission briefing said they were supposed to sink Atlantis. But once Lord Satanus got in the vault, plans changed. All in all, a good story worth reading. I would definitely recommend picking up the entire storyline if you can. If you can't pick up all the issues individually, it will probably be in trade paperback by the time you're hearing this. But I would say either way you get it is just as good. I would definitely try and get the single issues if you're a collector. I think you're going to really want to reread these. It's a fun story, but I'll probably buy it in trade paperback as well and just give my single issues to somebody else like I usually do. It's worth reading. It was a fun Aquaman story, and I think that it's a definite good addition to any comic collection. But that's just my take. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews, and we hope to see you on the next one.